Okay, this is not ideal lighting, but hi. It's late, but let's talk how my reading year has been going so far. Each year, I feel this kind of weird pressure when it comes to making this video, and I always just put it off and put it off and put it off. I don't know why I'm so stressed about it. I mean, I'm stressed about everything, but I always want to make it perfect, like I do with everything, but it cannot be perfect. I mean, first of all, nothing can ever be perfect, but like there's quite a few questions in this tag. I'm doing a mid-year book freakout tag, by the way. I'm sure you know by the title, but there's quite a few questions, and if I don't want to spend 2 hours making this video, some of the answers are going to be very surface level, and that just stresses me out. Because I'm always worried that I'm not articulate enough, but that I haven't said enough, because I'm always worried that I'm going to come off as stupid. That's just how it is. Why is this like a therapy session? I don't know, but it is. But that's the thing, I cannot spend like 15 minutes on each question, so just by default some of my answers are going to be pretty surface level. I am going to be like directing you to like specific videos where I talked about the books that I'm going to mention in more detail. So without further ado, let's start with the first question. And we are starting very strong with the best book I've read this year so far. So first things first, it's not really a book. I have 2 answers, even though the second one is kind of up in the air if it's one of the best books I've read this year, because I haven't finished it. But the one thing I can talk about is Arcadia by Tom Stoppard, which is a play. I've talked about this in my 24-hour reading vlog. I've done 2 this year. I will link it up in the cards or in the description. When it comes to this book, the synopsis for this book, it's really hard to explain. But thematically, this book talks about time. It talks about the relationship between past and present. It kind of switches between 2 timelines. The first timeline is in the 19th century, the second timeline is in the 20th century, I think in the 90s. And there's so much to talk about when it comes to this play. It talks about how everything is chaos, but there are still some patterns that repeat, and even though throughout the centuries we like evolve and like things change over the years, but deep down we all still ask the same questions and have the same passions and desires, just as people, as humans. It's about so much. I would love to reread this play before the end of the year, so I can actually articulate well why I love this play in my, best books I've read in 2023 video. I'm actually thinking about making a separate video about just this play alone, kind of like I feel like put it here would make more sense. Yeah, I'm thinking about making a separate video, kind of how I did the video about Madame Beauvoir. It's one of my favorite videos that I have ever made. It took me some time to prepare for it because I did have to do some research. Yeah, but it was very satisfying to just really spend like, I don't know, I think I spent like an hour just talking about one book and really delving into the themes, everything I like, dislike. Yeah, I don't know if I sold you on this, but yeah, head over to the reading vlog if you want more thoughts. And the second book that I'm currently reading is Bliss by Meg Mason. I am a third into it, and I am really enjoying it. I'm very worried about the ending because I've heard some people were a bit dissatisfied with the ending. I think it's a bit too kind of good to be true, which I tend to dislike those kind of endings, like when we get this like happily ever after and everything is like tied in a bow. I don't like these types of endings, but yeah, so far I am loving this book. It is about this woman who has struggled with some mental health issues throughout her life, and it really just focuses on how that having this like mental illness, I think it's not mentioned what exactly she has, but how having this mental illness has influenced her life and her choices and what kind of life she led. And it is, at times it's funny, but it's also heartbreaking, and yeah, we'll see how I feel when I finish it, but so far it is a contender for the best book of the year. aside from Arcadia. Second question, best sequel you've read so far this year? I think I've only read one sequel and I'm not sure if it's considered a sequel. Peril, Etter and House by Agatha Christie. It is a book in a series, you know, a Hercule Poirot series, so I guess it's a sequel. So even though this is the only sequel I've read this year, I have to say I really enjoyed this book and I actually was thinking about putting it in like the previous question. This would be, I think, my second favorite of Agatha Christie novels I've read so far. Number one would be Murder at the Vicarage, which is the first book in the Miss Marple series. And I think this would be the second one. It's set in the Cornish coast, like in England, in Cornwall. Hercule Poirot and Hastings go to this hotel and they meet this woman who like explains that she had this kind of few like brushes with death, like near-death experiences, and Poirot and Hastings start investigating. I really enjoyed this book because I'm not a huge fan of Poirot as a detective and I just love seeing Poirot be humbled. Like, he makes some mistakes in this book and it's just so entertaining for me. I also definitely liked Hastings more in this book. I'm not sure what's the other book that I have read that had Hastings in it, but I enjoyed his narration so much more in this book. So yeah, just a really great read overall. Number 3, new release you haven't read yet but want to. Before I had, what is it called? Your Name by, I don't remember her name, but I was thinking about answering with this book, but the more I hear about this book, the more I'm like, I don't think I'm going to like it. So just today I just removed it from my TBR and Goodreads because it's about the like fangirling culture and like obsessing over K-pop idols, but make it literary. And I feel like I would have enjoyed it, but from what I've heard, the second half is very weird. It almost feels like a fever dream, and I just don't enjoy this kind of like really weird literature, like almost leaning to like magical realism. I just don't enjoy it, so I've decided to not read it. But to answer the question, new release you haven't read yet but want to, I've heard about Ripe by Rose Etter, and Goodreads tells me that it's about this girl who is working in this Silicon Valley startup. Yeah, she finds herself trapped in the corporate nightmare. Blah blah blah. Long hours, toxic bosses, unethical projects. Oh yeah, I remember. It's also about her mental health because she has this like miniature black hole that has always followed her. Which, like, I don't know, I feel like this could be interesting, but I feel like this kind of metaphor of like this black hole that's following her as a metaphor for like her mental illness, it's a bit on the nose, but I am interested. I've heard some really good things about it. And another book that sparked my interest would be Natural Beauty by Ling Huang. I'm so sorry. And the tagline on Goodreads says, "Sly, surprising, and razor-sharp natural beauty follows a young musician into an elite, beauty-obsessed world where perfection comes at staggering costs." I really enjoy books about musicians, especially classical musicians, not really any other musicians, classical musicians specifically, because I did play the piano for a few years. Yeah, I think she plays the piano, attends a conservatory, a talented musician, but she abandons this path of being a musician at some point and I think goes into this like beauty and wellness store to work there. So there's that. Number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Sorry to like keep reading Goodreads like synopses, but I haven't read any of those books, so that's what I'm gonna do. The book that I'm really interested in, when does it come out actually? Hold on. It comes out on September 12th and it's called The Death I Gave Him by I don't know, I'm so sorry. But the tagline is, a lyrical, queer sci-fi retelling of Shakespeare's Hamlet as a locked room thriller. I do not need anything else. Like, that sounds amazing. Except for the thriller part, I feel like I would enjoy it more if it was a mystery, like locked room mystery, but a lyrical, queer sci-fi retelling of Shakespeare's Hamlet, Shakespeare science fiction, locked room mystery. And it's queer? I mean, I will wait for the reviews to roll in and then I will decide if I will like it, but so far it sounds like everything that dreams are made of. Whew, biggest disappointment. Okay, so I have 4 things for biggest disappointment and luckily also 4 things for biggest surprises. So let's get through the disappointments first. The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, which is a short story. I also read it in some 24-hour reading vlog. I have to say, I don't get it. Like, this is like supposedly one of the best short stories ever written. Like, this is what I've heard from other people. This is what it has been described as to me. And I'm just like, that? Like, what are y'all talking about? It's such a simple short story with such a predictable ending. And okay, listen, I get it. While it is a simple short story with a predictable ending, it does spark a conversation about like tradition and like why do we keep doing certain things just because we've done them for years. So like I understand it as like a short story to read for class because it sparks this conversation. What it implies, I guess, is interesting, but the story itself, it was nothing special. I was so surprised that this is what people were talking about. Like, come on. Then we have The Woman Destroyed by Simone de Beauvoir. I'm not gonna lie, I still do not know why this book didn't work for me. It's a collection of short stories. I read it in the literary fiction reading vlog. I don't remember what the title was, but I don't understand why it didn't work for me. It explores such topics as ageism and motherhood and supposedly feminism, because Simone de Beauvoir was one of the leading feminists of the 20th century. So it should work for me, but it didn't. If you want, I want to say more cohesive thoughts on this book, linked over to that video, but honestly, even there, I was just like, I don't know. I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars, but it was just so disappointing because I was expecting to love it. So there's that. Then we have The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arman. So this book is about 4 women who leave their miserable life in London to go to this medieval Italian castle for a month of April. They get away from their husbands and just enjoy life for a month in Italy. And I was surprised where this book went. Without spoiling anything, it just took a turn that I wasn't expecting, especially considering the first half of this book and what I thought this book was trying to do and what it was saying. Yeah, it just went in a very different direction, definitely less feminist direction than I anticipated. And lastly, we have Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Listen, with this one, it's a me problem. It's absolutely a me problem because I just don't love like nature writing. I've heard such amazing things about this book. I genuinely don't think I've heard one person, on BookTube at least, criticizing this book. So even though I knew that I didn't really enjoy nature writing, I've decided to give it a shot. And you know what? That's my fault. Because I didn't enjoy it, unsurprisingly. It's about this indigenous woman who is a professor at university. It's something different than biology, I don't remember it right now, but yeah, she's just like trying to explain her relationship with like science and nature, and she tries to teach us how to live with nature, how to respect nature, stuff like that. And I enjoyed a lot of her teachings, like the ideas. I agreed with most of them, but I was bored, and also her writing style was a bit too kind of poetic, descriptive. I just didn't really, it wasn't my thing. And one piece of criticism I can offer that's not so like subjective, like it's not necessarily a me problem. I thought especially the second half was extremely repetitive. Like it just every now and then I would be like, didn't we just come to the same conclusion like 2 chapters ago? Like, yeah, I don't know, I give it 2 stars. Actually, I don't think I gave it 2 stars. I think I gave it 3 stars. That's very generous of me. Okay, I'll have to look it up. I'm not sure. But yeah, didn't enjoy this reading experience. I actually was reading it, I was buddy reading it with my friend Marta, and honestly, if it wasn't a buddy read, I would have DNF'd it, and I should have DNF'd it. So there's that. And biggest surprises. Okay, let's be positive for a second here. Things first, if you watch my literary fiction reading vlog, you know that Conversations with Friends was a huge surprise for me. I really hated normal people, and I actually ended up quite enjoying Conversations with Friends. I did like a whole deep dive into this book and like the Sally Rooney oeuvre in that video, so if you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to watch it. But yeah, in this video I have found out that I actually am not a Sally Rooney hater, so there's that. Another book, You've Lost a Lot of Blood by Etter LaRocca. I've read this book in my last reading vlog during Summerween. Yeah, it's a horror novella. It's kind of a story within a story. It has a very low rating, so I was quite surprised that I enjoyed it so much. Another book would be Pizza Girl by John Kyung Fraser. I actually thought I would give it 5 stars, but the end disappointed me a little. But I have to say, this also had pretty low rating, and I really loved it, except for the ending. I would definitely recommend it. It's about this like 18-year-old pizza girl who is pregnant and who has some mental stuff that she hasn't dealt with and some grief that she hasn't dealt with, and you know, we love this like dysfunctional heroine type of genre. Yeah, I had a great time with this one. And lastly, I think this is the first thing I've read this year, which is The Longest Journey by E.M. Forster. I wasn't expecting much from this book, but I ended up giving it 4 stars. I think all of the books that I've mentioned here, yeah. All of the surprises are 4 stars. But yeah, this was the last book that I haven't read yet from E.M. Forster, and it's just not a very popular book when it comes to books from E.M. Forster, so I wasn't expecting much, and I was pleasantly surprised. This had a bit of like dark academia theme in the beginning at least, or like maybe not dark academia but like academia theme in the first half, because first it is set at university and then later the main character becomes a teacher, so it has this school setting and it was very unpredictable. There's quite a lot of unexpected deaths in this book, like the body count is so high. I don't know, I had a blast with this book. It was very unpredictable, unexpected, and yeah, I'm glad this was the experience that I had with my last novel by E.M. Forster. Favorite new author, debut or new to you? Eric LaRocca and Joan Didion, actually. I was thinking about putting Play It As It Lays on my list of like best books I've read this year, but I don't know, I give it 4.5 stars. It was really good, and I have this year found out that actually I am a Joan Didion girly, and I'm so happy about that, and I'm very excited about reading more books from her. But yeah, if you want more thoughts, head over to that video. And yeah, Eric LaRocca too. I would love to read more books from him. Maybe even the one that's most famous, Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. We'll see. Newest fictional crush, don't have one. Newest favorite character, I didn't think I had an answer for this question, but currently I'm reading Soren Bliss, and the father of the main character. Okay. There were some sentences that like almost made me choked up, because he is so supportive of her in such like quiet ways. Yeah. I can't talk about it because I'm going to cry, but obviously I haven't finished it, but everything I've read about this character so far, I love him so much. He's actually like a poet, but a failed poet. I don't think he published anything, but yeah, he is just so kind, and wish that I had this kind of relationship with my father. But yeah, it's not the time and place. Book that made you happy, I don't know, Arcadia probably, because of the like amount of different ideas that this book talks about, like philosophical ideas, scientific ideas, everything. Just so good. Most beautiful book you have acquired this year? I kept going back and forth when it comes to this question, but I was thinking about choosing a different book, but there's one that I bought this year, and there's something I love about it, even though it's so simple, but it's Slow Days, Fast Company by Eve Babbitt. I don't know what it is, like the black with the pink is just, there's something so simple but so stunning about this book. Yeah, I actually thought this was a novel, but this is, I think, a collection of short stories. Yeah, hopefully I will get to it at some point. I've never read anything by Eve Babbitt, but some people kind of mention her along with like Joan Didion, and since I loved Plays as It Lays, I thought maybe this would be something I would enjoy too. And then we have what books do you need to read before the end of the year? So many. Like, first things first. So remember that video that I made about the classics that I want to read this year? Yeah, so in that video, I've decided to learn from my mistakes because in the previous year, I have chosen 10 books for my classics TBR for 2022, and most of them were extremely long. Like, I think about half of them was over 500 pages long. So this year, I have chosen only 6 classics that I wanted to read this year, and all of them I think were pretty short. And I was like, you know what? This is going to be so easy to like achieve. I don't even have to think about it. And then I didn't think about it for most of the year. I have only read 1 book from this list. So, just to tell you, just to remind you what I put on that list. So, what I haven't read yet. Demian by Hermann Hesse. The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. A collection of short stories. Specifically, I wanted to read Word Number 6 by Anton Chekhov. And The Posthumous Memoirs of Bras Cubas by Machado de Assis. Yeah, I haven't read any of those. The only book that I had on that list that I have read is Excellent Woman. So yeah, I really should get to those. Also, so many plays. I have to read so many plays to finally make this video about plays. Okay, moving on. I don't want to think about this. So, the last question is content creators you've been loving. So, I'm going to mention people I haven't really mentioned before. So, we have Simonella is bad. I think her name's Ella. She makes videos mostly about classics, but not only. I really enjoy her projects about like reading books from all over the world, like World Challenge, Reading Challenge, I don't remember what it's called, but she has read so many interesting books, so many interesting classics specifically because of this project. And yeah, I've just really been enjoying her content this year. Another person would be Lily Reads. She kind of reads everything across the board, specifically kind of genre fiction, so thriller, mystery, I mean a little bit of literary fiction too, but I just love her personality. She's so straightforward and so like unapologetic, like about the things she likes and doesn't like. Sometimes when I don't like something, I can be like, okay, so I didn't like it, but it's like a me thing, it wasn't my cup of tea, but like you might like it. But she is so straightforward, like if she doesn't like something, she just doesn't like something, and I admire that about her. And lastly we have Jardeline. I feel like it's supposed to be pronounced differently. Jardeline Reads. I actually started following her, or I became subscribed to her because of her interest in horror. But these days actually she's reading a lot of manga and BL, and like I love that for her. And she's that kind of person that honestly, no matter what she reads, I just enjoy her content because of her personality. But yeah, mostly I started watching her channel because of her horror recommendations. And yeah, that's everything. I don't know if this was enjoyable because I feel like mostly I just like redirected you to like another video if you wanted more thoughts on this specific book. But yeah, there's that. Oh my god, I haven't even told you how many books I've read this year. I think I've read 31 books and I feel okay about this number. I think I've read some really good books, I've read some bad books, I've read some disappointing books. Yeah, I don't think it's like a bad reading year for me. It's just, it's okay. I'm not mad about it. So there's that. Hope you enjoyed this video. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!